When I would answer myself.
Yeah.
Panache. Panache.
Ngokubyeka kali
Boy.
akawanga tokakubi.
Boy. Twitanga. Twitanga ekubya. Keshana.
Kyekka ate kano ka question kandyetaaza street interview. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. And good morning. You're welcome on Black Hot Fire Network. Africa Maria from Kampala, Uganda, with my colleague INNOSSETU. It's so looks at and a little bit cold. Okay, not cold according to what some of you guys are going through. So apparently, I shouldn't complain that it's cold. But yeah, we are glad to, of course, be here with you guys today, being our Wednesday, and yesterday we couldn't come because we had electricity issues, so it wasn't possible for us to, of course, come live. Oh, but yeah, here we are. Today's topic actually was today's topic was actually supposed to be a street interview. We had planned it to be, but we realized that we couldn't uh, do that. I'll give you guys that street interview. Uh, but still, we're going to connect this with the history and the past events during the days that Amin, of course, um, got rid of the Indians from Uganda. We were supposed to like ask people what they feel about Amin evacuating Indians from Uganda. We were also supposed to, of course, we were supposed actually to broadcast this live, guys, in the street bar. We don't have the potentials of now. We needed some microphone shit, but maybe next time. So let's just dive right into the topic. I mean, evacuate, no, I don't know if I should use the word evacuate or whatever, getting rid or chasing. Simple, I'll use the word chasing as it did. I mean, chasing the Indians away from Uganda or out of Uganda was a saga that, of course, lifted the entire world's attention. Apparently, all the journalists in the world wanted to have a touch of the story. Others even created their own stories without even stepping in Uganda. Everyone had their people had mixed feelings about this. And until to date, even when you ask Google, it's still gonna tell you some stuff like it was a bad thing, or but a lot of Ugandans celebrated when the Indians left, and it is very crazy. They usually talk about Indians. Sorry, they usually talk about Indians, but Amin did not only chase Indians. Apparently, he just all people who were not Ugandans or from Uganda. But people exaggerate with Indians because these were the major people who were holding Uganda's economy. There were people who were, of course, having businesses at all scales. So apparently, during the days when these Indians, there is a video I watched that was very funny. So this woman said the Indians are known to be the most panicking people in the entire world.
Not panicking, panic. Say panic.
Not they're the ones they're panicking people. They panic.
Like the way she used that phrase. They're not the panic people. There is a way she phrased it.
So I guess maybe she meant like they exaggerate with everything or stuff. So and then she was like, I'm even surprised to see that they handled this well. We expected them to panic like huge. I think from all the reports and how people were responding to this during that time, it seemed that people were aware that this was coming. And this is something that actually the media does not tell the world, that Amin did not just wake up one time and decide to expel the Indians from Uganda. First of all, he gave them an opportunity. He said you can only be a business person in Uganda if you agree to become a citizen of this country. Apparently, Allah, they felt like, no, we cannot. You understand? He gave them the opportunity of becoming citizens. I even wonder how later on they came back to claim what they left behind, because apparently most of them came back to claim what they left behind, claiming they are citizens. But during those days, Amin gave them the offer. He said that you can only stay in Uganda if you are a citizen of Uganda. So if you agree to become a citizen of Uganda, you are welcome. You can stay here. You can adapt to the norms, to the culture, the lifestyle, and everything. So that whatever you make should still gain Uganda as a country. But of course, I feel like they feel like maybe Uganda is an inferior country, that they cannot attain citizenship, or they cannot agree to become citizens of Uganda. I don't know the criteria of Indians being citizens in particular places at that time, but most of them rejected that offer. Neda, yeah, Neda. Okay, so
I'm not getting it. Nze omulonde kalina abaana babiri.
so a lot of people at that time, when you follow the history, they will tell you, I mean, just woke up one time and gave them 24 hours. So what you got? Bagama 24,
90 days.
8 days, 90. 90 days is see 1 month, and some days.
Two
2 months,
months. 2
sorry.
months.
3.
Yeah.
Mm?
Yeah.
They
3
give
months.
them 3 months.
Mm.
That's 90 days, right?
Mm.
So within that duration of 3 months, they were given the opportunity of either to agree and become citizens of Uganda or leave. And they chose not to become citizens at that time. So, when we are looking at the 90 days, the 3 months is enough. First of all, when they are expelling us from other countries, you don't even get that time to shower, even to breath your to. If they are deporting you, whether from the UK, wherever, from European countries, when they are deporting you from those countries, you don't even get time to go back home and shower or and put on. If they have found you in a towel, you are going in that towel. If they have found you brushing your teeth, you're going the way you are. You don't even go back to pick your phone and stuff. So I don't know why the Europeans exaggerated with this whole Idi Amin's incident, evacuating or deporting. Maybe I'm even using the wrong terms because these terms don't really work. They were given a 3 months preparation to leave. Sell what you have, or you're going to leave. So these people prepared until that day when they left. Actually, a lot of Ugandans celebrated because Ugandans said for a very long time, Indians were dominating the entire system. They were not dominating the coffee industries. They were dominating the tea industries. They were denominating at a larger and also at a small scale business, uh, industries. So when these people left Uganda and celebrated because they knew they are going to have power to control their economy. The biggest, saddest thing of the Indians' existence in Uganda was that these people were doing business, but I feel like they were only exploiting Ugandans to only take money back home because they were never involving themselves in Uganda. They never purchased the things from Uganda. Everything apparently they were using was coming from India. Everything, every expensive thing they were using was coming from India. They never patronized Ugandan business. They were never injecting that money in Uganda, and all they were doing was to distort. They were just withdrawing money and sending it back to India for me, which I feel was a great thing for Amin actually to do. Um, Except nowadays, we see Indians in Uganda who claim they are Ugandan and they wouldn't wish to go back to India for whatever reasons they want. But of course, we know for a very long time, not only Uganda but the entire Africa has been exploited in one way or the other. Uh, we know that Indians were exploiting Uganda's resources. First, they were dominating key factors of economy. um, of course, they prevented Africans from, of course, carrying out different activities. You are in a country where I'm a citizen and you decide what I should do. You are Indians. By the way, people usually talk about slavery. People usually talk about the slavery that took place at the coast of East Africa. People don't usually look at what Indians did. Indians are the do it. Indians are very, very discriminative, and they are still discriminative until now. And for me, it is very funny how they would. Indians are always the ones who are crying when they're in places where they are not recognized. But Indians have been very discriminative for a very long time. Um, I'm going to give you this example. You would find Indians, the only time Indians would employ Ugandans was when Ugandans are going to be their boy boy. That's how they used to call it. That's the Mukomba box.
Mm.
That's how they used to call them. Indians could say boy boy. They usually loved using boys in their houses, I think in fear of their women. So they had a lot of house boys more than house girls, so they used to call them boy boy. And Indians with English, yo. So they would say these very disgusting things, but I will still have to explain. So if an Indian had you as a houseboy and you are the one cooking, you were not allowed to eat until when these Indians finish eating. And when they finish eating, they will spit in your food, and you're supposed to eat that food in their presence because you are a Ugandan, because you are a black person. This, if I had interviewed people on camera, they will still tell you that it is not something I'm making up. If you're someone who can do such a thing in someone's land, you have come to Uganda, you are not a Ugandan, not only even a Ugandan, you are not an African for that matter, and you want to discriminate me, you want to make me go through all that crap in my own country, please, please. And people have the audacity actually to complain, why did I mean never go? No, please. If Ugandans suffered in the hands of the Indians in Uganda, it was said a lot of young Ugandans boys were persecuted. If you are only found standing and talking with an Indian young girl, it did not matter whether the boy talking to the Indian girl is younger, you were persecuted for that. But it was very okay for Indian men to do whatever shit they would love, to the extent of even raping some women, and it was very okay. They created this society that they are so holy, that uh, they are so holy within their society, but when it comes to other people around them, they are so barbaric. Indian committed crimes in Uganda that even the books never recorded. The crimes against humanity, what Amin did was just something small to clear. Indians went at the source of the Nile. You guys know that the source of the Nile is in Uganda. And of course, it is, I think, 78 kilometers from here.
Um,
Over 75, I guess.
why why has the Ugandan government allowed the Indian back to
Mm.
Uganda?
Yes, um, land. I'm coming to that, by the way. Uh, but I think when the current president of Uganda came into power, for whatever reasons, he allowed the Indians to come back. And we have, since then, we have been having sagas all over. These guys, when they were going, um, first of all, they are coming, they wrote letters and made agreements. When these guys were coming, there is something, when they were leaving, there are things they would do. Let me assume, like where we are right now is an Indian property, is an Indian property. Abwire kakolanga ebintu ebyo zobera omubuzaabuza
Buzabuza, kwekwasana.
is an Indian property. I'm assuming this. Those guys would get the documents and everything. They dig a hole and they bury these documents.
Mm.
Ugandans were surprised to see when the Indians came back, they were digging, you know, they were digging burial places, they were digging burial. Those 90 days, the 90 days, apparently the 3 months they were given were enough to, of course, they were enough to allow them strategize, to the point that some of them went ahead and had some graves. We have Indian graveyards here. They buried their riches in those graves, and people were just seeing these graves and assuming that they were abamu babaziika laba no not all Indians ababookya boy tolabangayo malaalo g'abayindi
sigalabangako naddala
mukwano ffe waffe
sigambe nti bonna abookya abo be baziika beebo abalina
waliwo
mixed n'abaddugavu batugeze oli yazaala omuddugavu fajiri mwanda omumanyi
simanyi
the former boss of UNEM yali maama we mu India taata yali muddugavu so there is no way bayinza omwokya but bana bali purely nga purely bayindi bookya
si bonna tebabookya ffe waffe tulina amalaalo g'abayindi kyenjogerako nkimanyi ate ewaffe tulina amalaalo g'abayindi newaana e Kampala waliwo amalaalo g'abayindi asooke ndabe
kikwetagisa kulaba ate ng'omanyi
nti mba njagala kuprovinga so a lot of people died olaba Hindu Cemeterium they have malaalo nze kino kyemmanyi nze waffe I was seeing the graveyards not all Indians are burnt so they would a lot of they would have their graveyards like a place where they would be buried nga baterekayo riches for a very long time Ugandans even didn't think about maybe moving these graves moving whatever only to realize that there were when the Indians came back Ugandans were wondering why these people were digging out these places like why are they digging the graves kumbe they had I think even when they went home they told their children so children were coming back to Uganda to of course dig out these things they had buried in form of dead bodies in Uganda soil and Ugandans didn't really know about this the Indians we see now, are children and grandchildren of those Indians who existed at that time. So they came back, and I know their parents for a long time were told them the stories and where to come and what to do. So many of them have still been in courts of law because by the time they came back, they found some hotels, some buildings, and some places have been owned by Ugandans at that time. So they take them to court, and Ugandans still have to struggle and claim that this land belong to them or these infrastructures belong to them. I don't know where it is written. There is no way you would even come back and claim something belongs to you when you're not a citizen of Uganda. But of course, the current president of Uganda gives them the liberty. Oyo muntu lwaki ayogererawo n'akantu ako ewakawo tewali masannyalaze so a lot of Indians at that time came back, and the funniest thing was trying to know about national IDs. They even have Uganda's national ID. They even have national IDs. They even vote. Indians have even formed their own associations here and a lot. There is a certain time where we were about to experience the same incidents that happened during the days of Amin, where Indians actually killed 3 students from Ugandan schools. They claimed they had come to take something from their shops, where Ugandans got crazy. They started killing them. Others were being thrown out of the windows of some flats, and Indians started running. They started running, like the woman said, they are the most panicking people. They started running away, but uh, I don't know how, but the government resolved this. allowed them to control your economy and create an underclass society to force slave labor upon Uganda. Exactly, exactly, Lando. Exactly. Yogerako nawe.
The history of Indians in Uganda and explosion. We know that President Idi Amin used to rule Uganda depending on decrees. So Amin's decrees drew immediately worldwide condemnation, but actually including from Indians. The Indian government warned Uganda over the consequences of setting out Indians out of Uganda. But I don't see these international media, these international, I don't see media, like, I don't see TVs, international televisions like BBC, like Al Jazeera, talking about what really happened in Uganda during that time. Of course, they will tell you that Idi Amin was a dictator. He killed the Indians, he chased them out of Uganda. But the guy was clear. He said that um, the Ugandan economy was.
Ndabika neeyaayamu bbulogweeme lw'ebikulu. Obudde terubadde bweru.
The guy said that
Tukozeeyo.
Idi Amin said in 1972. Actually, it was even before 1972. The guy was clear. He said that the Ugandan economy, foreigners that are in Uganda, whatever businesses they are doing in Uganda, they are taking the profits out of Uganda. They are taking them out of Uganda. Uganda doesn't benefit from these profits, yet they are working in Uganda. Yet the businesses they were carrying out, they were in Kampala and near places and metropolitan. But Ugandans were not getting this. Besides even the discrimination in prices the Indians did, besides all the mistreatments they used to do on native Ugandans. The guy said for him, he focused on economic way while he was making this decree. He said for you to be a purely Ugandan, to be a purely Ugandan, if at all you want to be a Ugandan, you have to get dual citizenship. Because of course, most of the Indians that were here had dual citizenship from India and Britain. So he told them it was simple for them, like get still dual citizenship for both Uganda and India. The guys refused. They just wanted forced things. They want to make things meet by force. So before before these people were chased out of Uganda, before these people were told to go back from wherever they came from, Uganda was going through economic depression alongside the very many profits these people were making. These were people that were selling products at different prices to the Ugandans. They were selling products differently compared to Ugandans, the Indians by then. And actually, we still have them, just like Ilando said, that why did the government of Uganda allow these people back to your country? Alongside, besides what they did, and these people, even up to now, they have not changed their behavior. of mistreating Ugandans. They look at black people as nga bwe baagala. So they still do price discrimination. They still do mistreatments they did. They still do. Actually, these people don't want intermarriages. It is very hard to find a Ugandan man dating an Indian. Oyinza okwekanga ku 10 osanzeeko omu n'obutasanga.
True.
However, buno obwana nno obuli mu masomero buno bubakwana because there are very many Indian kids in Ugandan schools. Ate n'amasomero ag'ekyalo. Naye wano bubakwana ate ne bubapiija. So, that was Uganda and Idi Amin. We know that
many of the Indians actually were citizens of United Kingdom. Kaze yako. Kalabye kaze. Many of these Indians were citizens of United Kingdom and colonies. We know that most of them were refugees who migrated from the United Kingdom. Others were refugees who were accounted for, of course, 6,000 at that time, especially. Most of these people were brought to Uganda to commit crimes that against humanity. First of all, these Indians, the ones who were in Uganda that time, they were brought as a British army or British machineries to come and help the British conquer Uganda. They came to help the British take over East Africa. Most of these Indians who were in Uganda actually were not people who just came to Uganda. When they came to Uganda, they just found that Uganda was favorable. They decided to stay. But these people killed our own. These are the people who murdered Ugandan kings. These are people who slaughtered Ugandans. They were acting on the behalf of the British. The Indians were the machineries the British brought here to suppress and enforce their control on the on Ugandans and of course East Africa at large. Indians throughout, if at all we are to go back, I feel even like they should even, if people are asking for reparations, because these people have killed a lot and Indians were so barbaric. So barbaric. So we see that why didn't the British people take the Indians to Britain? Why didn't these people take Indians to United Kingdom? Yes, we know at that time when Amin decided to chase these people away, other Indians went to Kenya, others went to Malawi, others went to Pakistan, others went to West Germany, and others came to United States. These countries decided to, of course, take these Indians. Others went to Australia, Austria, Sweden, Norway, Mauritius, and of course New Zealand. So only few hundred, if we can say that, only few hundred remained in Uganda. If I tell you that United Kingdom took some, if I tell you that Kenya took some Indians, not even one, they're in thousands. Malawi took thousands. Pakistan took thousands. West Germany took thousands. United States took thousands. Australia took thousands. Austria took thousands. Sweden took thousands. Norway took thousands. Mauritius took thousands. New Zealand took thousands. Now you can imagine, even after taking these thousands remained back. Can you imagine the population of Indians who were in Uganda at that time? even if records will not tell you the specific, but of course they hit themselves, they are knocking their own feet, because it is documented that all these countries I've mentioned, it took a thousands of Indians, but still a thousands remained back in Uganda. That means apparently Indians were choosing Uganda to be one of among their second homes. Secondly, they wanted to apparently take everything. We still have some land that Indians claim they own. Indians were taking Ugandans' land forcefully. Everything told about Uganda to the Western world was to justify the mistreatment of Uganda. They used admin to promote hate. They used Idi Amin to promote hate, and a reason to control the southern and the east of Africa. They wanted the land and resources of southern and the east of the continent. Exactly, Lando. I do agree with you on that. Um, all these things, before even you start, even until now, we still have people who don't find it comfortable when people come into their country. But apparently, when it comes to Africa, Africans don't have that choice. When you choose you, it is a crime. When people don't choose you, it is okay. When people choose them against you, it is okay, actually. But when a black person, when an African decides to wake up and choose themselves over any other person, it is a crime against humanity. Probably because for us, we don't have the feeling, we don't have the right to have the justice that we need. We had a lot of Indians in Uganda. We had a lot of them. If all these countries I've mentioned took a thousands of them and still a thousands remained back, then you can imagine this small country. Uganda isn't big. Uganda isn't big. Actually, Kenya is bigger than Uganda. Tanzania is extremely bigger than Uganda. Uganda is a very small place. Um, so and then you see the existence of course of the Indians in Uganda had a lot of connection with Mahatma Gandhi, of which some people celebrate Mahatma Gandhi, but we know how racist the dude was. If you slow down at the source of the Nile, maybe one time, me and Innocent, we shall have to go there on our vacation sometime. We shall show you this was Abu. We shall go there one day. I just want to ku source of the Nile naye tujja kukolayo waaka waffe si woono yes ono tujjamuwaako kagiransi katono bwe tuti kokonyo bwe tutandika ebintu byaffe ebyono bye tugenda okukolanga. So when you reach at the source of the Nile, there is a statue of Mahatma Gandhi. I mean, that one is not his home. That one is not Mahatma Gandhi's land. The Indians had occupied the source of the Nile through the entire areas of the source of the Nile. Even when you reach there, you'll start questioning, like, how do we have Mahatma Gandhi's statue at the source of the Nile? We need something so very precious, because that is it is a memorial place. It is a place to always be remembered in the history of Africa.
Besides even that, most of the roads in Kampala, they were named after those Indians. Most of them. Just Bagachusiza recently, they put people like Bench Wanuka Street, but they were named after these Indians.
Bebe nemingira.
Let me ask, like a fool, was Baton an Indian? I mean, was Baton a Uganda?
No, he
you know that Baton Street? Because they were named after those people. Was they Uganda? Most of these people were Indians and other Wazungus.
When you reach in Jinja, the entire Jinja town is Indian structure. All the houses are Indian structured. They're in the Indian structure styles. these people had apparently occupied all those places to the point that everything, it is funny when they reach somewhere, they want to change everything to be them. They scrap away everything that identifies this place in its originality, and they start printing, they start putting their existence in every corner. Me, when I reached at the source of the Nile and I saw Mahatma Gandhi's statue, I was like, what the, how is this man's statue? Mahatma Gandhi did not have too much involvement with Uganda's history. Watch together. He involved a lot with the southern Africa. He did not have too much, but Mahatma Gandhi being an Indian philosopher, and for some Africans who don't really know that this guy was a racist, who still praise him, you find his pictures in people's offices, and I'm like, bro, do you even know what that dude was? You see, the government allowed the Indians to build his statue. I think about Siga Rangia Gold, and it's always there. I think Indians come every time to clean it. They even have a period in a month when they slope down there, just to, I think when they are celebrating Mahatma Gandhi or something, I don't know, but they're usually there. So that statue is there. We should be having. We have a lot of great people in Uganda's history, in Africa's history. Their statues should be standing there, not Mahatma Gandhi statues. Anyway, Uganda is really part of Kenya, but demarcations and tribalism were used to split up uh, for the European colonialism, for land and resources to build up Europe. Balfour Declaration purpose of destruction. Yes, yes, Lando ngajira mu buli nsonda. Kati yanajidde walala. You can. It is true. Actually, that, and not only Kenya, Lando, just Africa was one, if not for the demarcations, like you said.
No, Pangea was the entire Earth, not Africa,
Mm.
before it spread.
Mhm. We were one, so not only Kenya, Uganda still has a lot in common with the Tanzanians, by the way. I tell you, but there is much in common with Tanzania. Okusinga Kenya.
Zatenda ba Kenya.
Mhm.
Abatanzania batumbavu nnyo.
Aye mukwano.
Apart from the cultural way of doing things,
Anti kati abo tuba twogera ku unity ya Africa,
witchcraft.
but tuba twogera ku doing things, tuba twogera ku culture.
Kyokka najogedde witchcraft.
But tuba twogera ku doing things era tuba tuli ku culture.
Tanzania eyinza okuba naye ate Africa is one. When you look at Kalamajongs in Uganda, they are the same people. Even we have even some tribes here in Uganda, the so-called tribes that are in Kenya. The Luo.
We forget even the Luo. The Luo, the Luos in Uganda, the Luos in Kenya. Tulinayo Abagisu in Uganda. Waliwo bano babeera nga Bakalenjin. We got all those people, and there are in Tanzania there are people who speak just exactly like I speak it from our village. They even name, even the same in Congo actually. I've not seen those. They are in Kenya too. Shoot. Then, but I think the ones in Kenya are these related to Bagisu, except in Butuli we are Bantu. We're related to Mugisu, but they are. You see, they are Congolese who speak exactly my language. They are Tanzanians who speak exactly my language. Even their names, they know That's why sometimes if like someone sees my real documented name, but are you a Congolese? Are you a Tanzanian? Are you stuff? Because apparently, too late to stop
Stop.
it with the language, and I'm listening to you speaking my African. Lando, Lando is always control that. Africans will always do it. When you see us go back home, you yeah, so we are one. And then the same thing with Cameroon. People usually there are languages they identify in Cameroon, but there are people in Cameroon Islands speak they have similar pronunciations of words like some languages in East Africa. Because I had this Cameroon friend who was called Pius Nkweta. He's a grown up guy, but you would hear like when they are talking, you even pick some of the words, and they are correct at times. What I think is always right when they are speaking, and I'm like, how come I thought it right, but it's always similar. So in a nutshell, Africa is one. Africa is one. Maybe we may be a little bit slightly in the language, but we have a lot in common in the pronunciation of our words, and the meaning of the words, the energy we use. Except that they say that my tribe is not always strong in that.
No.
Isn't that what you say?
No.
That for us we talk so kindly. Innocent is always saying that my language sounds so kind when he listens when I'm talking to my mom. People always think we are so kind. Maybe we are. I think I think when I'm speaking English, it is too much of the words are very, I don't know. But in our language, it's very slow and calm. Setu always says that when we are quarreling in our language, you would think someone is just telling someone a story. But when actually someone is so furious, at times they'll be like, "Are you quarreling? Don't you? Are you really quarreling?" Then you're like, "Yeah, but how come you're so calm? Because that's a language. It is not so. I don't know how to say it, but that's it anyway. So tetulinga bakusomesa bakaba wafoisira ne waba ayogera bulungi bakoisani. I love it. Thank you. Thank you, Lando. Thank you. But anyway, Africa is just one. That's one thing I know. No matter what, um, Africa is just one. So, Chokolanze wemanjagala oyomba. I prefer quarreling in English because when I quarrel in English, there is emphasis. You emphasize every word comes with gravity. But when you are quarreling in my language, if there is a visitor who doesn't understand the language and you are quarreling, they will never know that it is unless they see someone slap another. Then they'll be like, "Shh, were you quarreling? How come you've slapped the other?" So that's my language. So you get it.
So I'm back on Asians in Uganda. Like I don't know why international media houses don't publish this. Even in our history, we learn in Africa, it doesn't show this. You will see that there are more negative implications of Idi Amin sending off Ugandans. I mean, Europeans. Oh, sorry,
But
Asians.
all of them, he sent
Asian,
everybody.
yeah, sending off Asians from Uganda. You see that there are very many negative. Uh, all the things go back to him.
Mm.
all the fingers now point to him. Kitegeera? They point to him that the guy was so barbaric. The guy was a dictator. He killed everyone. He had no reason for doing this, but everyone has a reason, and actually, very many people like Ugandans and even the entire Africa, they are now waking up to see that the guy was doing something for Africa, for Uganda and Africa at large. Okitegeera? Because the guy was real for African issues. Everything that was African made, he would put a hand. Okitegeera? When we look at Idi Amin, even in the conferences he used to do across Africa, the guy was he was a Pan-Africanist. However much he collaborated with some of the Europeans, he collaborated with some of the
He was
Europeans, but
using
he
them.
remained on the values of Africans. He remained on African culture. During this guy's regime, during Idi Amin's regime, I normally watch some of the videos. If it was maybe a national gathering or address or what, local dances could be actually they could call out local dancers. So the guy loved culture so much. Okitegeera, African culture and African values. So nga lwaki abamu bamuyitanga musezi?
Sure. Vaako. Vaako. Nani. Eto. So, actually, he
Yes,
was.
it is separation come with invaders and all other language were developed through tribalism and survive. Oh,
Of course. I mean, Amin had his own reasons why he wanted to expel Indians from Uganda. One is the economic nationalism. Idi Amin's government promoted a policy of economic nationalism, seeking to reduce the influence of foreign communities, particularly Asians of India origin, in the country's economy. Now, of course, he believed by expelling these communities, Uganda would take control over economic resources and, of course, reclaim its economical power, of which it did. Two, wealth distribution. We know that Amin claimed that the expulsion of Indians would lead to this redistribution of wealth and economic opportunities among the indigenous Ugandan population. The government aimed to address economic disparities by removing what they saw as a privileged minority. Amin also said that the reason why, of course, he expelled the Indians from Uganda, he wanted to have his political expediency. The expulsion of Indians was also a political move by Amin to consolidate, of course, their power and give Ugandans access to participate solemnly into Uganda's politics. At that time, we had a lot, Indians were dictating apparently everything. uh, Idi Amin had issues. There is one of the Indian, representative at that time who wanted to contest. He claimed that they wanted to have ministers in Uganda. When Idi Amin chose his ministers, Indians were like, "How can you choose a minister and not choose an Indian minister?" Idi Amin was like, "This is not India. How can I?" So apparently, he did this because. He wanted Ugandans to reclaim, of course, their power. we know that during the days of Amin, we saw the Uganda's economy hiking. Even without Idi Amin, even without Indians, Ugandans solemnly took over their economy and they became economically uh, independent. Ugandans gained their economical freedom. They decided, they even began to set their own prices according to how they find fit, which wasn't with the Indians. Indians were setting the prices for the Ugandans. Indians were people who were so discriminative that they apparently opened these shops and they were selling commodities at I don't know how to term this in an economical way, but the prices at which they were selling their commodities to Ugandans weren't the prices at which they were selling the commodities to uh, Indians and other Europeans. I don't know whether I should call that racial discrimination, price racial discrimination or stuff. But yeah, that is what Indians were doing. You are on somebody's land, you are taking what is rightfully theirs, you have taken their land, and most of these people took people's land in a very cunning way. I was told that during the days of Indians in Uganda, Uganda was exporting coffee at a very large scale. Uganda was one of among the big countries that export coffee outside Africa. And how did these Indians, of course, take those big pieces of land, more especially mu Busoga, in the eastern part of Uganda? Basiru bali basiru. Indians would come, and other people did not have the potential to cultivate or to plant coffee on a very large scale. What Indians would come and rent that land, that they are going to plant coffee until they harvest. Remember, coffee is a perennial crop. Kitegeera? It's a perennial. Perennial. So don't say like that. You can't talk to me like that.
Okay.
Why? Why are you doing that?
Wangute kituufu. Kituufu.
Why did you say that?
Get out. Ole.
That's bad. Ugamba otya munze buli kye njogera kituufu.
Kale buli kyogera
No,
kituufu.
stop.
Buli kyogera kale kituufu.
Stop.
Kale buli kyogera kituufu. Ogera. Yogera yakusuna. Yogera tukole.
Nina kye nkusobezza, waliwo kye nkoze. Nda toyagala nakwogera. Ekyo ekigambo kigenza okukufulumya mu kamwa.
Oh, tewaliyo kiri. Nambale. Idi Amin's mistake was to trust in British rule. They used Amin's trust to corrupt his election officials. That was his
That
dismiss.
was his dismiss. Yeah, true.
Because I see very many British in Amin's government nga bamutambulira kuli bye bamuwa ekyokukola.
Yeah, and n'oggyako n'ebyo abantu abamu abaminisita biki abo abantu basponsalingako ne Museveni mu lutalo.
The British.
Kyongolaba mukyala Besigye alina stronghold e Lweru kaali kabakonekitinga ku banene. Anyway, yeah, Lando, I agree with that comment. So, like I was saying, um, people were planting coffee at that time, and you know, coffee being a perennial crop, um, Indians would come and offer to, of course, plant this on Africa, on some Ugandans' land, saying that the moment they harvest, they will give the land back. But remember, it takes some good years for coffee to grow and be harvested. Two, even when you harvest coffee the first season, you can still reharvest it the second, the third. You don't replant it again. The moment a coffee tree grows, it grows and you keep harvesting for a very long time. So when time will come that the Ugandans will be asking for their land back, Indians will be like, "Will you still have our coffee trees? We are still harvesting coffee. The agreement was about us harvesting this coffee, so we cannot give you the land back when we are still harvesting coffee." And a lot of people lost their land. And then we had some business, owners at that time who would trick a lot of Ugandans in this. And because selling land those days wasn't something that people would just do, you couldn't sell land individually. You are selling land to someone else. It was a community effort, a community doing that. The entire community has to agree whether they want that kind of neighbor, whether they want that kind of person in their community. Even if you as an individual would want someone to join the community, if the community rejects that, there is no way you would bring those people within that community. So it was very hard for Ugandans to sell these big pieces of land to the Indians at that time. But of course, Indians acquired in a cunning way. They acquired big piece of land. We saw through history, we see a lot of Ugandans working as shamba boys for the Indians, others working as maids for the Indians, and the mistreatment that, of course, occurred through that time was showing the inhuman behaviors of the Indians towards the Ugandans. But yeah, I don't know why the society, I don't know why the mainstream did not talk about those inhuman behaviors that were exhibited by the Indians towards the Ugandans at that time, but rather they saw. First of all, Idi Amin was very right. The British brought Indians to Uganda. When they were done with them, they let them stay in Uganda. They should have actually taken them back. They should have taken them back or taken them to United Kingdom. Oh, but of course, they left them here. Nando says that Uganda has everything rich in minerals, fresh water, fishing, etc. They couldn't afford for Uganda to prosper with the leadership of Idi Amin. I agree with you, Nando. And until now, there are some places in Uganda where we see the Indian print throughout. I don't know how even these Indians came back to reclaim these infrastructures, the land stuff. How did they even do that? Sweden still owning all those big pieces of land.
Mandivan.
bane ku Madivani ate oba Madivani erimu n'oluwalabu lw'e Saudi Arabia n'eri eri Munyonyo resort.
They have land. They had claimed lease for that land for over 100 years, over 200 years. That's why they that's why they come back, because the lease was not due.
The land they have, there is that big land at the beach. How did they even see that big
The
land? You are no one as you
factories
are
they are
heading
having.
to yeah, the factories they are having. I don't know how they even came back and reclaimed. And so when I become the president, I'm chasing them back.
And most of the Indian buildings that are in Kampala, olaba wali ewabba kuli awo, ebizimbe ebyo by'abayindi tebabizimbula. Olaba bekakizimbula bibeerawo wakibeerawo nga temuli matu, naye mulimu abayindi babeeramu nga biri bwe bityo.
Nga bivuunze.
Yeah,
they are very dirty.
Yeah,
they are the most dirtiest
because
creatures
of
I've
course
ever seen.
they know that they are not Ugandans. Tebasobola kukikubbako langi.
They can't even paint the
They
building.
wish to help bring back the Indians in Uganda. It can be true.
True, auntie. They made even agreements with the Museveni. Chinagambia, they made different agreements.
Bino ebizimbe wadde akalangi. Most of them, but they are Indians inside there.
But Indians are the most dirtiest creatures. But they are dirty.
Oh! TikTok, abakola juice.
Indians are dirty. Indians are dirty. They are dirty. They are dirty. I even wonder people who go and eat in their restaurants. Indians food. Disgusting.
There is that park gye twayitamu when we are from the squad. We passed through that road ne tuyitamu ne tujja eno wansi eno tugenda mu Kisenyi. There are Indians in that place, very many Indians. Once I once saw a woman ng'ali mu kalina. Yeah, those people are so funny. N'akwata akasero n'akateeka ku mugulu akasero n'akakanyuga eno wansi mu restaurant bamuteeremu emmere n'akasiga. She was an old woman. What is the essence? The flat is not too high. Wokanyugirayo akasero wo.
Abayindi nze be bantu benkyasinza olaba nga bakyafu. Olaba banyiga ddaafu nga bakanda eŋŋano ne bagisambisa bigere. Eŋŋano n'agigira ng'asamba bigere ng'akola kiddaafu.
We know that the Asians first came to East Africa in large numbers in the early years of the 20th century to build the railroads. That's why I was saying that if the railroad now is done, what are they doing? So we know that this migration was confined in East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, and the coasts of South Africa, with some spillover. Asian community in East Africa grew very rapidly, buried by British colonial law from owning arable land. They took to commerce on all levels, to service industries and to professions. British colonial officials tended to employ Asian clerks and assistants. So this is what Rolando was talking about. These people were supported by the British. So often in preference to Africans, because the Asians were better educated and were used as modern ways in doing they were used to modern ways of doing things compared to the Africans, I guess. But Africans had a way of doing our things. We didn't need this modernity that is destroying Africa for good. So we know that hence in the years before East African independence, the Indian and Indian stroke Asians community ties constituted the bulk of the middle class, as they still do even up to now in East African countries like Uganda today. Even after several generations of residence in East Africa, the Asians tend to live quiet apart from the Africans. Though they have daily business relations with Africans, there is virtually no social contact and no intermarriage between Africans and Asians. It is very difficult to find a Ugandan marrying an Indian or Asian. It is something which doesn't add up to them. Yet they keep on marrying African women, but it is very difficult to relate with these people. In dress, diet, language, and religious and cultural activities, these people do different things due to the many years they have spent in Africa, but they don't recognize African culture. We know that the Asians maintain their separate identity with the Asian community. There are great disparities in wealth and sharp divisions by caste and set. In these communities, marriages are arranged, money loaned, and of course borrowed. Um, Business opportunities discussed and traditional customers maintained. Few of the Indians display much sense of national urgency. They have stayed in East Africa, in Uganda, despite increasing pressure and dangers because of the ties of property and investments, and because they had no other place to go, I guess. But India is there. So we know that Africans, when independence came to Uganda, of course, in 1962, relatively few Indians chose to become citizens of Uganda. So many of these who did were careful to preserve British passports. So this is the thing Idi Amin was calling out, that if at all you want to stay in Uganda, possess a Ugandan passport. You possess a Ugandan. These people were having British passports because, of course, they were supported by the British. So we know that in the last years, Africans have become more demanding and Africanization programs have developed. The Asians' near monopoly of commerce and professional activities has come under attack. These people monopolize everything when they come to an area. I know the places in Uganda where I find only where you can't put up a pharmacy. All pharmacies are owned by these Asians, by the Indians. They monopolize the economy. They work hard to monopolize the economy. This is the thing that happened during Idi Amin's time. The guy saw this and the dangers of monopoly, because Africans, Ugandan government was not getting profits out of this. Rather, these people were taking profits to Asian countries and were depositing money, were keeping their money in British banks. They were not keeping even their money in Ugandan banks. That's why the guy had to chase out these people from Ugandan economy, because they were a threat. We know that uh, um, the African man in the street believes that Asian merchants and money lenders are cheating him in his fellow country. These people, they do much in money lending, but they cheat. So educated or semi-educated Africans we believe that these people, they are a threat to our economy, they threat to Africans, because they don't do things for a basis of Africans, but rather to make profits out of Africa.
Anyone ever in Chinese style? They lend you little money for a big piece of land.
Ekitegeera. So Lando says the British helped develop the Indians and the Chinese with the assistance of Russia and the United States and funded by the international bankers. Kuba kati weebuuze, these Indians that were in Uganda, these Indians baali tebalina wadde passport y'ebundi ez'omu India. They had British passports. Kitegeera? So, and actually most of these people, most of these Indians that are back in Uganda, they do a lot. Zinakugamba nagenda ekabaale, but you in the entire place you can't find a Ugandan business like a pharmacy. Uganda. It is very hard you find the Indian pharmacies.
And their drugs are always not working.
Yeah. So you can't put out, they fight you down. This is the thing Idi Amin fought in Uganda. Together.
At the present Uganda said Indians understand business.
He said Indians understand the business. So we know that ever since independence in Uganda, governments have been under increasing pressure for throwing Asians out, but have resisted for fear of disturbing the domestic economy. Kati alowooza most of the African governments think that when they chase out these Indians, the economy is going to decline. But we have people that are capable in Africa. People that are kubagadde ate nze atawaanya ggwe. Nze atawaanya ggwe oli mukulira. Nze atawaanya ggwe ali mukulira. Oli abadde ayanikawo engoye nga zinaka lediyo okumukubya oluba abaana yakola bwakolaki naye tayinza kuba nga takuwulidde naye katate gwe oli mukwerera wano. What is the difference? Abadde oli mukwanika bwanisa wangu era wamazina agende naye omukubya oluba naye ate oli mukwerera. Tompuleyingira. Topuleyinga era omalirize. Edda tekyetaagisa kwera kati tuli mu kukola ekiwoga nanti kati nze mbadde nkolera comparison nti okusinga okwoli nawano okuwogana kuliwo okusinga. India and China are colonies of Britain. Even to date, they are supported financially by the British. India and China, they are colonies of British. So what you mean? Kale.
Bado nagenda nakubya oluba njagala mboole.
Kati kankubuulire kino. Let me tell you about this. yakutukoletera ebyetaagisa.
I know what that means. It means yelling. Like you are yelling at someone.
Omaliriza tekumanga olina
Obadde odduka weweepiisa ng'okomawo, obadde ogenda mu ttooyi, bw'opinga ng'okomawo kati era ozzeeyo. Indians were used throughout to
obugundi butandise okufumita
buki
walibwamu
nange bunfumise wano, obwo bwagudde awo, obwavudde mu paafu, obwavudde mu kiyigo, mu perfume. Sorry. Anyway, sorry about that. During the colonial era, we know that the British employed various strategies to maintain control in Africa. And one method involved using Indian troops to suppress rebellions. We know that the British Empire had significant pressure in India, and India soldiers known as sepoys were often recruited into the British Army. Indians were deployed not only in India but also in various parts of the British Empire, including Africa, to serve as a part of course, colonial military forces. Now, the sepoys, these Indian sepoys were deployed in Africa during periods of unrest or rebellion to quell local uprisings and maintain colonial control. We know that their recruitment was partly based on the assumption that soldiers from outside the local context may be less sympathetic to local grievances, making them potentially more effective in suppressing rebellion. Like I said, I told you guys what these Indians did, what the Indian military forces or military machineries did to the African people. We also know that the British employed a divide and rule strategy, which involved manipulating ethnic, religious, or regional differences to separate unity among the local population. Now, deploying these Indian troops served this strategy by introducing a foreign element into the colonial military, potentially fostering divisions among different groups in the local population. We all know that the Indian troops were often considered, of course, trained at that time. The British believed that the discipline and loyalty of Indian soldiers would be advantageous in dealing with the local uprising. We know that also this the Indians' involvement with the Africans was about the legacy of colonial policies, where the use of Indian troops in Africa reflects the broader imperial policies of the British Empire, where various colonial territories were interconnected and resources, including manpower, were often shifted between regions based on strategic needs. We shall not forget that it's important to note that the use of Indian troops in Africa has a very big implication and was part of a larger colonial system characterized by exploitation, oppression, and resistance. Now, the legacy of these historical dynamics continue to shape the social political landscape of many African nations. You cannot talk about Africa's colonialism and not mention how Indians were used as machineries to assassinate, to kill, to act with mercilessly on, of course, the African people, the same Indians that demand. And that's why we see when Idi Amin, of course, decided to send the Indians away from Uganda, we saw countries like Germany coming in the picture. We saw the United States come in the picture. We saw, because this was a united effort, Indians were brought here to work for those people. But of course, as you follow history, they will tell you that Indians came to do business. Indians came to construct the very lines. Yes, they came to construct the very lines on the command of the British people. And yes, they also contributed to the killings, the assassinations, the genocides that took place in Africa. We shall never forget that. And these are things that people hardly talk about. Indians had a hand in the death of thousands and thousands of Black people and Africans all over Africa. But of course, I think it was, I don't know why they thought it was only right for them to ask for justice, the justice that they did not give to the Ugandans. Agajin, ndetse nasema ko kintu cyane.
So for aim to reduce Asian opportunities have been success in the past 5 years. Uh-huh, 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 In the immediate issue is that the Asians in Uganda, the fate of those in Kenya and Tanzania depends on the degree how the drama of expulsion is worked out in Kampala. The deadline set by Amin is for the departure of all non-citizen Asians. Okitegeera? Non-citizen Asians. Ekitegeeza abaali ba citizen baasigalawo. Kitegeera? Non-citizen Asians kuba ndowooza baali bakifudde kiyolera wherever they could come from, they could come in Uganda yonna yonna gye bavudde alt free entry free exit. Kitegeera? Non-citizen Asians is
oguntu ogulaba ogwo webusuula amagi kati biri ebiti
bitema ku Sande.
Sande si wala nnyo sokolayo ebisuwera tebugenda tuyingiramu ebi
Nembiteme kati
dingira kiri kiraba kiri
I was saying the deadline is set by Idi Amin by the all non-Asians, but they will tell you that he sent off all Asians. Non-Asians was on 8th November. If most recent optimists calculation of British officials is correct, all nearly over those holding British passports hmm, will be evacuated to the UK by day, delaying day. Much more certainly in the fate of the stateless Ugandans. These were once thought to the number of course, 10,000, but some Asians who had considered themselves citizens are suddenly finding themselves non-citizens as Katonda kankuba bukubika.
So tebaliiwo.
Abagenda Entebbe biti nga omaliriza. Genda Entebbe biti nga omaliriza.
Twambale sapatu. Bizeeri. Bwe biba byebyo totema mukwano. Boy, no, don't do it. Totema bw'oba ogenda bisula awo totema. Siina gye ntwala bintu ebyo nze. Olaba ne bino wano bye twatema bikyali wano mu kasonda. Aboyi tobizza eno. Anyway, we know that some before even we most people would be asking themselves like, how did even the Indians end up in Uganda? How did they come? How did they discover? How did they come to Uganda? But like I told you that most of these Indians came here during the colonial era. The British employed various strategies to maintain control. Bireke. Ati tobiteeka eno mukwano, siina we ngenda biteeka. Bw'okikola ekyo ekintu ebyo ebiti bagenda bw'oliba toliivu. Twabikola. Tugenda kuteekamu ssente mu. In fact, if it was possible, wandibitemedde ddala ebya ddala. N'otatema matabi. N'ogatemera ddala agati ago ne gasigala eyo ewaabwe. Simanyi w'ogenda kuyimirira. So we have. Sorry? Nzigenda. Bonochi. Excuse me, guys, a little.
yamugamba abitemu niwanabawo motoka y'amagye so ki ogenda mugamba bitemu gwe mugambe today gwe wayitewo ennaku agaano mukamaawo you're going to tell him
Wow.
Labayo, you're going to tell him to do that stuff wagana within this week kugambe ngenda bitema wakuba nti ekiŋŋaanye omuntu
nze bwe ndowooza ngenda kubira landlord mugambe ebiti bino bireeta ebiwuka ngezezaako evunze tulira nkooye njagala natukomamu
kale Asians yogera ku Asians tokooba ate no kiziwooki olaba kyadde ne kiwookinga eri nga mweyonga
yalaba wamanya oti
omanyi ngamba
natuyoma ne guli
yaddeyo n'agiraba
omanyi oti
andi yajje ku live n'akugamba tejjukire nti yakomyawo kitopiki ekyenkeera
kiri ekirala sene yali
azirabanga kale no kale tugende maaso. So
like I was saying
that
we have the funniest thing is that I was complaining about the fact that we have Mahatma Gandhi's picture in Uganda, but we know that Mahatma Gandhi's view and actions in Africa have been criticized for reflecting racial attitudes by modern standards. We know that this most of his acts were considered racist. We know that Mahatma Gandhi arrived in South Africa in the years of 1893, and he spent about 20 years there. Primarily, he involved in the struggle for the civil rights and the social justice. However, his early writings and statements have been criticized for expressions that some interpret as racial insensitivity. In some of Mahatma Gandhi's writings from the late 19th and the early 20th century, Gandhi made statements that have been criticized for derogatory views towards Black Africans. Some of his remarks suggested that he initially saw Indians as superior to Africans, of course, using terms that are considered racially insensitive. Gandhi was involved in campaigns against the harsh treatment of Indians in South Africa, but there are instances where he supported policies that aimed at separating Indians and Africans, advocating for segregated facilities. Gandhi usually used a word kafir Kafir is also a word that is apparently used by most Muslims to, of course, mean someone who is not following their religion. If you're not a Muslim devotee, or if you're not a Muslim, Muslims call you a kafir. And we know that Mahatma Gandhi usually used this word kafir to, of course, to identify the Africans, the black people. Mahatma Gandhi usually used to call black people kafirs. Muslims still use that, like I said, to as a term to identify people who are not Muslims. So you are a kafir, or EMBZ, you are a kafir. You don't study on, you don't go to their mosques and find you are kafir and stuff like that. So so Gandhi used these words in his writing, which was racial slur. Of course, he referred to black Africans as kafir. Now, this usage has been a source of criticism as it is considered offensive. We know that Mahatma Gandhi's views evolved over time, and his later years saw a significant transformation in his philosophy. But some Africans still, we have a problem. I think this is a problem that most of the Africans have. We should know that there is a little literature about the Black people. There is little literature about the greatness of the Africans and the Black people out there. Most of the literature that is actually most of the literature that is spreading in the world now involves a lot of people that actually committed atrocities on the Africans and the Black people at large. Now, we also know that there is no way you are going to be made prominent if at all you had stood with the Black people throughout the time. And if at all you have been made prominent, they are the Black people who are going to recognize your prominence. They are the Black people who are going to recognize your work. They're the Black people who are going to recognize your struggle. And hardly we find little literature, little reviews that are out there for Black people, of course, to read and understand. If we look at the great people throughout Black history who fought for the Black people, if we look at Malcolm X, there is hardly any literature that talks about Malcolm X, apart from a few Black people who decided to write probably some books that are talking about him. Some other people go ahead and quote, but there is no much information about Malcolm X. Everything about the great Black people is just highlighted because before something is agreed with or is credited, it goes through phases. It goes through a screening, filtering, and at the end, credited. Now, UNESCO, as UNESCO having UNESCO being a body that gives credits or gives credit to such kind of historical things, they hardly give credit to Africa and Black people's true history. I'm driving this back to Mahatma Gandhi. If you move to different offices of people, I've seen this not only in Uganda, I've seen this in Kenya, I've seen this in Tanzania, I've seen this. People have pictures of Mahatma Gandhi's with his few quotes. You've ever seen? Akafanana komuzeeyi abantu obugaluvindi mu maofiisi g'abantu. Wagula obulaba obufaananyi obwo, obulaba mu ofiisi. Oyinza okuba wamusomako naye nga tewamulaba mu ofiisi z'abantu. Wamulabako mu ofiisi z'abantu?
He has some fake quotes. People follow up. He had even Smanya Gandhi's pamphlet. He had a pamphlet published that had his ideologies.
Naye nga Mahatma Gandhi yali racist. Kyova olaba aba Indians.
Prime Minister wa India.
Naye n'avaayo n'ajja mu South Africa yabeeramu for 20 years.
Kye kyamutuukako.
mbu oba yadduka n'ajja mu South Africa n'abeera mu 20 years n'ayagala n'okugifugako n'ayagala okwefuula
oba yali socialist oba communist
n'ajja n'atandika okwefuulafuula. But people always study about Mahatma Gandhi and the struggle. Mahatma Gandhi did not struggle for other people,
Africa.
but
Actually,
rather
they put him out among the people that inspired Africans to fight for their independence. That's what I learned in history.
No, of course.
They say Gandhi's statements, Gandhi's pamphlet, the pamphlet I've told you about, Gandhi's theories, ideologies, they boosted the Africans to get independence. That's what history tells them.
They are segregating because in most of his speeches, forgetting nti abantu abamanyi they will be quoted balondamu obuntu obutonotono ne babutekawo. But if you follow the real articles of Gandhi, he was making it very clear bw'abayindi bamanye mbu bo they are superior. Ekisooka skin yaabwe yanjawulo obutegera nga making Indians to believe nti bo bali superior than the Africans. Gandhi yali complaining of racial discrimination ey'abayindi mu South Africa. Gandhi didn't see the fact that Africans were also being discriminated. During the days of apartheid, waliwo racial discrimination, abayindi bali beyawulamu, abazungu they had separated, and Africans naye Gandhi basically ye yali afokasinga nnyo ku bayindi. And for Gandhi, it was okay for Indians to mistreat black people. I don't know how people say he was a man who fought for humanity. Gandhi did not have any humanity in him. But maybe if he changed towards the later days, or if he changed, towards the end, but that wasn't him. So kumanya ina n'akamanyiro yagamba when he dies, they should get his ashes bazisuule mu great water bodies. Chovolaba, they came and poured his ashes here at the source of the Nile. Ne bagenda ne bakwata ne ashes ze yasaba source of the Nile, one of the greater yasaba water bodies ez'enjawulo nga source of the Nile is among them, ndowooza oba ne Mediterranean Sea. But and that is how they gye baayiwako gundi ebigundi besobola ogerekawo nga nkanoonyako wanaakaakantu.
So, and that is what we normally talk about history. For me, that's what I knew about that guy. And actually in African history, there are small things they pick out and exaggerate. They pick up small things, but I didn't know actually about that Gandhi, that he was a discriminator. Because I learned about him in African nationalism, and they were like, inspirations from Gandhi's speeches, inspirations from Gandhi's ideologies and pamphlets, because of course he was a socialist. And I ask myself, why is it that India and the relation between India, like Lando said, that these are colonies of British India and China. But China, these things don't add up. British, USA, those are the people that believe in capitalism. Chokate, China and India, they believe in communism. Then Katindaba Tebigata, how does it come? How does it apply that these people are supported by British and USA? I think that they believe in different ideologies. There is a big question there. It means the British and the USA, they are the same people that initiate communism. They are the same people that initiate capitalism. What politics were based on that?
Okarara. Source of the Nile. Olara Gandhi.
Trade and visit the source of the Nile. You will be surprised to find.
Batch column bronze. ate kati olaba when you look tebajja kigamba, but Mahatma Gandhi's ashes were immersed at the source of the Nile in 1948. But a lot of people ask, like, where was Mahatma Gandhi's connection with Uganda? Apparently, as per his last wishes on his death in 1948, his ashes were divided up to be scattered in several of the world's great rivers, including the Nile in Uganda. Okitegeera? So guno oguduudu kumanya gulinga n'ogusiru. Mubalina gusuula mu several great rivers.
Maybe he had the capacity. There were provisions to support that.
Which provision olina right now eyiwa ashes zo wano wamwe yagenze eri ebuyindi n'ayiwayo.
But I think at Omboli, I didn't know that this guy ended up in South Africa.
Mahatma Gandhi was in South Africa for 20 years.
Wait, Bienevinevi championing he was based in South Africa, because if at all he died in 1948, if we count 20 years back, that is 1928, right? 1928, Chitegeza Wabayagenda from South Africa. Oh shit! He used to champion whatever he championed when he was in South Africa during the apartheid. Nebida.
Ya championinga naye yamala n'addayo okwo, yafiira ewaabwe.
Yafiira waabwe? Mahatma Gandhi. For me, I used to call him Matam.
I know Matam.
Mahatma Gandhi. Dewe engeri gye twamwogerangako mu history, nagenda okulaba akafaananyi ka guy ng'alinga olubu olubbi. Kasi gye kali awo ka TV. And they used to sell us some books when we were still in school, primary, even in secondary.
Yafiira mu India mu 1948 mu New Delhi. Yafiira India, yamuzijjukira.
Hey, you talked about South Africa now.
Mahatma Gandhi's time in South Africa was a formative period that significantly influenced the philosophy and approach to activism. An activist. And Gandhi arrived in South Africa in 1893.
Recently.
1893 to work. What did 18?
18. Oh, I thought 19.
I don't know. From 40 something. 1893 to work as a lawyer in South Africa
under the British government.
And during his over 2 decades stay, he became a prominent figure in the struggle against racial discrimination and injustices, which was for only the Indians. Gandhi initially went to South Africa to work on a legal case, but he soon became involved in the broader struggle. One of Gandhi's early major campaigns in South Africa was against the introduction of the Anseatic Registration Act.
African history are picking age. Something small. It doesn't clarify that racial discrimination yali basically for the Indians, not for all. And
so when it comes to our history, it's always highlighted. Tebakuwa depth. Aweyatandika okola wano weyatandikira wewali as the Anti-Registration Act known as the Black Act of Pass Laws. This law required Indians to carry passes and be subjected to fingerprinting, which Gandhi vehemently opposed. In South Africa, Gandhi developed and refined the concept of satyagraha, or no-violent resistance, as a powerful tool for social and political change. They said that this philosophy became central to his later activism in India. bwe yabeera wano emyaka ago amakumi
Because
ago
India was a British colony.
N'addayo e Buyindi ng'olwo wano amaze okufuna ekipawa agyewulira n'adda e Buyindi okukola oyo vululu we yavulungulira eyo. Now Gandhi founded the newspaper Indian Opinion in South Africa. Imagine. Indian Opinion, I want you to quote that. Not the opinion of the people, but Indian
people in South Africa.
Opinion in
because
South Africa.
The people who weren't discriminated in South Africa were the whites, the Bazungus, all these other races. Kati bo bali bagala yenga yemwanirira yenga yi.
Hangalwanira bayindi. Kyova yagamba that newspaper that you opened, they used to call it the Indian Opinion, which served as a platform for him to express his views of civil rights, equality, and non-violent resistance. The newspaper played a crucial role in mobilizing support for Indian community struggles. Indian community struggles. You are struggling in somebody else's land. You want your rights over the rights of the indigenous people, and you think that is just right. Before nze, I would love to see Mahatma Gandhi ng'agamba abafirika balina free movement teyakkirizanga baddu bava eri mu Buyindi. Bwe yabeera mu Buyindi, Mahatma Gandhi omuntu eyasooka opposinga abantu okujja ne bakompitinga n'emirimu with the Indians. By the time he went to India, he opposed why are other people coming to India to compete with the jobs, but he forgot what he did down in South Africa, where he thought the Indians had the right whatsoever to have every service they need in South Africa, but not other people being in India. Shedede. Awo yayitiranga abantu abalala abakafuuru. So, we know that Gandhi established the Tolstoy farm, a communal living experiment based on principles of simple living, self-sufficient, and non-violence. The farm served as a center for satyagraha training. Ante onga yefula meditator, asmaba yeyitanga habot. Habot nga bashaulini.
Habot.
Meditation, mugenda kusoma non-violence, calm yourself down.
What I heard about that guy, so it is not a surprise that he supported that communal living because he believed so much in communalism. That's why mbadde nkugambira nti kati awo kitegeeza British ne USA beba introducing a communism oba socialism ate alongside capitalism, because British n'Abamerica bagamba believing na mu capitalism. Okitegeera kyokka ate webanga beba supportinganga this guy webanga China ne India, they are colonies of US and of course Britain.
Beba baleeterayo system ya leadership ya governance. So, jumping just concluding, Gandhi left South Africa in 1914, having achieved some victories in the struggle for civil rights. His experience in South Africa profoundly shaped his worldview and methods of resistance, laying the foundation for his leadership in India's independence movement. Oba kitegeera? Kati kitegeeza Gandhi ekipawa yakijja wano teyasookera eri. Wano yajjanga lawyer.
Anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Ati outro zona zijja kubeeranga zo. Thank you so much for watching and supporting Blackout Fire Network. For those that have been watching us on Twitter, Facebook, and of course on YouTube, Blackout Fire Network. Thank you for watching us right away from the first hour. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for commenting in. For those that have been in the comment section.
Of course, Lando.
Yeah, Lando, thank you so much for being with us for that time on those two accounts. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Lando. Thank you everyone that For those that have been eh, thank you for always watching us every now and then. So we yet to come back in another
It's okay.
We yet to come back in another session, and it will be afternoon, I guess. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day. We yet to come back. See you.
All right. See you guys.
So it has been me, INNOSSETU, with my colleague Maria, Africa Maria.
Yeah.